Okay. Hi everyone. I'm just checking if you can hear me clearly. My voice is audible. Feel free to unmute yourself, type to the chat box. Um, and I hope that the screen is, you can see it as well. So can you see my screen? Can you hear me?
Yes, you are audible and visible also. Thank you.
We can hear you. We can see your screen.
Yeah, fantastic. All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome. And welcome to the review session. This is the first review session we conduct online, and it is available to everyone. The purpose of today's workshop is an interactive workshop with those who have cleared these papers before you and maybe in a better position to share with you some tips and tricks. I'll start first for the sake of time. Rest of the colleagues shall join later on. We have a specific agenda today we'll discuss. And meanwhile, there would be a Slido deck, some questions, Q&A you can answer, you can ask and we can answer. You can have an interactive session. Maybe you can start by scanning this code and there will be another meeting. We can say a link and there's a meeting number that you can join to the Slido. Slido will be a facilitator with us today. We will have to be interactive. We'll need to do some ice-breaking styles.
Hello.
And what I would definitely
Hello.
request from you is during the session, try to be muted as much as you can. In case you cannot hear me, please, you can unmute yourself. You can type to the chat box. We don't have that sort of moderators that can facilitate today, so we have to help each other. So the thing is, we have an agenda today. Agenda would be as we shared on LinkedIn and our WhatsApp group as well. There will be an introduction, there will be technical exam preparation, and there will be some tips and tricks, and definitely by the end we will have our Q&A session. I'll start by myself first, but before I start by myself, if you can scan the QR code or just go to slido.com, I'll give you a couple minutes and then use this number because I need you actually to be participating in today's session and it's going to be interactive. So I need you to be there. Just go to slido.com or just scan it with your mobile phone. I'll just wait a couple minutes so that everyone can be there. By the way, the session is recorded for future references or maybe some other colleagues who could not join us today. And because everyone I respect that everyone has their own time zone. For example, I'm now changing my time zone from one country to another. So I understand different time zones, of course. So what you need to do here, either to scan this code or go to slido.com and hit this number 3732-704. This is what you need to do. I hope that everyone has copied this. Maybe you can copy it to the chat box as well. And today's speakers, I'm just gonna speak for myself today. My name is Abdurrahman Ali. I'm the tax director, and I am an ADIT affiliate, ADIT affiliate. I've been teaching ADIT for the last 2 years. My native language is not it's not English. Yeah, so you can maybe hear and listen. My native language is Arabic. That's why your maybe first question would be, what's your native language? I'm an ADIT instructor recognized by CIOT, UK CIOT. I've been teaching for students in large multinational companies and consulting firms as well during the past 2 years. I'm actually changing my headset right now. I'm just checking one more time that it is audible and you still can hear me clearly, because it does seem that the battery ran out because I had a couple meetings before our session today. You still can hear me clearly? Am I correct? You can unmute yourself, speak it out.
I
Yes,
can.
we can hear you.
Or maybe
It's,
I still
it's
have
clear. It's clear. The voice is clear.
Okay. I think I can hear you now better, right? Can you just say something one more time?
I can hear you, Abdurrahman.
Yeah. All right. I can hear you too now, right? Thank you for the pointing it out. So moving
Thank you.
forward, exam is tomorrow. Are you ready? That's the main question that you should ask yourself. I guess since you're here today, this means that you're ready. Ready in terms of the idea that you have to be present. And today I'll share with you some tips and tricks as well. But before we go into the technical understanding, I want you to, since you have already participated, can you just type to me, what's your native language? I started by myself. I said, my native language is Arabic. Despite the fact that the exam is in English, but I still have attempted it, I've passed it, and here we go today. We can speak different languages. So we have English, we have Hindi, we have Arabic, Urdu, Hindi. Yep, just participate. Urdu, all right, okay. Okay, so it does seem that we have 2 English, 3 hats for Urdu, 3 hats for Hindi, 3 hats for Arabic. So it does seem that we have multiple different native languages. All right, thanks for the 10 participants who made this poll active, but I want to encourage you all to please participate as well, because the more we go further, the more I need more interactions. Maybe some have commented in the chat box as well, maybe. Yeah, all right. Okay, so the next question is, are you attempting paper 1 in June 2024, which is tomorrow? I know that some of you might not be attempting tomorrow, but might be preparing for December 2024. Might be an ADIT affiliate as well, might be some sort of want to understand what's going on out there on this ADIT qualification. So 85% said yes. All right, for the 85% who said yes, thank you for participating. And you're not alone in the world. Everyone as well is attending. By the way, I'll give you just a quick point. As an ADIT affiliate, as well, I can attempt one more exam if I wish to have. For example, if I want to extend my area of expertise in some of the other papers than the one I attempted, I can do that. So yeah, that's the thing. So the quiz we have here, and the first quiz is just try to be fast as much as you can. What's the preferred mechanism double tax treaty avoidance treaty may utilize to resolve taxpayers' issues? Think about it. It's not just a thing that we will have to think about it, or it's wrong or yes. I'm just trying to make it fast for everyone. Think about it. What's the first preferred mechanism double tax avoidance treaty may be utilized for? Here we are speaking about the mutual agreement procedure, MAP for short. Court arbitration, court, those are some sort of cross-border resolutions, tactics or techniques that might be used, but mutual agreement procedure. Just try to be fast. I'm trying to give it like one more shot. So select the relevant option for BEPS action 6. What's the closest option to you on BEPS action 6? it doesn't matter you hit the right button, the wrong button, doesn't matter. The thing is, we're trying to speak out loud our mind. So PIP's Action 6, it's the anti-abuse treaty, or they call it anti-treaty shopping, right? So it happens that way. So we will discuss if there was some sort of discussion about PIP's Action 6 today. So here, thank you for everyone participating. Again, there's no prizes, there's no thing that's called you hit the right button, you did not have time. Yes, it was very fast, very short, but the thing is I'm trying to keep it interactive, trying to keep some sort of questions because the exam is tomorrow. All right, so let's discuss the exam strategy. And before we discuss the exam strategy, yeah, I have a kid who is 2 years old. So if at any point of time you hear some kid crying, you know it. All right, all right, okay. So whether you're at office, home, good luck for tomorrow's exam, and let's discuss some sort of exam strategies that we want to understand. So the first exam strategy that you have to make sure that you think about it tomorrow, 100% focus on your time management techniques. Just a couple minutes ago, you saw me showing, or if you didn't come before we start, I was showing a clock. The clock was simply helping me to start on time, taking a break on time, and maybe resume on time. I'm trying to utilize my time to the best. Likewise, in the exam, you have to be very strict about time management. You have 4 questions and you have a specific timetable, specific 3.15 hours you have to finalize and commit to. Make sure that you split your questions into the right amount of time for each question. And again, do not try to compromise your time management over anything else, even technicality in one question, because it does matter. I've seen students who fail because the time management techniques they used. So you have 3.15, which is the 15 minutes that used to be reading in the past, but not anymore. You can start typing the moment that you fetch your exam. So use your time management by dividing the 3 hours over the 4 questions you have in paper 1, and make sure that you reduce this 45 minutes by additional 10 more minutes. So 35 minutes should be your clock. You should use an alarm next to you, some sort of alarm that will help you on the question 1, 2, 3, and 4th, even for the breaks, because you need a break. Your body needs a break. Your brain needs a break. So you use your time management technique in a best way that will help you to move on and accomplish what you're trying to do. A second exam strategy is, please do read your exam question at least twice. At least twice go through it. It will not take more than 1 minute if you read your question 2 times, but it will help you to understand the key points that you want to look at, that you want to think about, and you want to start drafting the idea. The exam is usually not about a single idea. It's about a mixture of subjects that you have to interpret and you have to answer. In order to provide an answer, you have to digest the exam question. So take your time during the reading. And one more time, you have to, even while you are doing the interpretation of a question during your 35 or 40 minutes, please, you can just take a pause, look at the exam question one more time while you are even answering it. Try to think about the last 6, 7 paragraphs you have typed. Is it in line with the exam question or no?
Because if you are paving a new route or you are deviating from the main concepts that you are asked to answer or interpret, you are losing marks, very simply. You're losing marks by losing your time on irrelevant questions. So try to be very, very much focused on your exam question. Read it the first time, couple times, and then reread it during your attempt. Focus on your style. You have to maintain a style as an advisor, writing and evaluating a subject. So you have to write in a format that is readable, that is, we can say, human friendly. Yes, we have errors, we have typo errors, but end of the day, you might do a spell checking by the end of the exam. You have to consider to write in a way that is better for the reader. End of the day, the reader don't know your name, they don't know your nationality, they don't know whether you're an Arabic speaker, English speaker, Hindi or Urdu, they don't know you. They just see your paper, and your paper will speak for you. So make sure that you write with style, that you try your best. And the more you practice with style, the more you will get marks, because you will be able to comprehend the subject and deliver the message. End of the day, the reviewers want to see your paper as a candidate script. For those who don't know, the Mahmoud Abu Samra, who's the moderator, he could not be with us today, and he would be with us in the TP, and he's an instructor. We're working together. His paper was chosen to be the best oil and gas energy resources candidate script during his exam window, because he tried to manage the style, technicality together. Technicality alone will not work, because you have to make it into style. Please, if you have any distractions, if you're attempting the exam home or office, maintain your space. Find a space that can be manageable. I know that everyone might have family obligations, personal obligations or commitments. I don't know. Everyone has his and her own matters. The thing is, you need 3.15 hours alone. And I mean alone, because if you're distracted, you might lose focus. If you lost focus, this might backfire on you. So just 3 hours you need to be alone. Keep away from distractions, put your phone on airplane mode, put your emails out, close your email. You're not there for that time, during this specific time. Stay calm. The more you stay calm, the more that you can reflect on what you have interpreted. Please take pauses. Make sure that you take a pause between question 1, question 2, 3, and 4. You must take a pause. Please have a cup of coffee, water, anything that feel you relaxed. There's a lot of drinks that you can drink during the session, the exam window. And it can give you some sort of energy, it can give you focus, and definitely sleeping. If you don't sleep well during the exam, you will not be able to interpret, even if you did 100% practice, but you're not ready. Your mind is not there. We're not doing a physical interaction here. We're doing a mind interaction with the keyboard that you will be working on to deliver the exam answers. So stay calm as much as you can. Pause and reflect. Reflect, you have to go through your answers after you write it. If you work on your time management, the first aspect I mentioned, the first strategy, you will have time to reflect on what you have written. Even if the time was up on a specific question, skip it. Do not try to answer more on that question. But if you have something in mind, keep a comment that can remind you after a while what exactly you want to do. On this point, after you go on and take the next question and the next question, and then by the end, you will have a buffer of time. Think about it, 35 minutes multiplied by 4 questions. You might have almost 50 more minutes by the end of the exam after answering 4 exam questions. 50 minutes can be allocated again over the 4 questions, depending on the case. You might find a question that you did very well. Another one was not that much. So you need to allocate more time to that one. What if you found out like the 4 questions was not 100% completed? Again, go back and reallocate the time. So you have to work with your time, your clock, very much closely. It's your friend, it's your ally, it's not your enemy. So please make sure to utilize it. That's the exam strategies that if you definitely plus the technicality, I'm not talking about the technicality, but if you are utilizing it, I guarantee that you will pass from the first attempt, or this attempt at least. All right, since we are last minute exam review, you have to chill out, relax, focus on some core fundamentals. Do not try to read everything. Do not try to do everything at the last minute. No, just look for some of the fundamental subjects and be a reader at this time. You did your work, you did your homework, you did your study, you did your practice, and you have to be a reader at this moment. Be a reader. If you have some sort of group, you can talk to them and just discuss high-level understanding. You need to be a reader of recent tax reforms, for example, recent reforms in terms of the syllabus here. I'm not telling you to understand every aspect of a jurisdiction, specific jurisdiction, no. We're discussing recent reforms or recent tax updates. I'm not discussing the specific subject. I'm just trying to be high level. You have to be aware of PEPSI project. Definitely, you have discussed PEPSI projects a lot and the action plans. Some of the subjects that never gets old, which is those subjects are like the fundamentals of the international taxation and the fundamentals of the paper 1 international tax principles exam. Still, you have to understand the residency principle up to the maximum degree, per establishment conditions and criteria. And you have to understand what's causing the issue and why do we have double taxation agreements, DTA, or double tax avoidance treaty, if some would call it. So you have to understand the narrative itself. What happened if we have double taxation? What is double taxation? How can we relieve the double taxation? Why do we have the double tax agreement? Those are all any questions that the answer is very simple. It's all about why and what is the objective of having a double tax agreement. Why do we have cross-border trade that is economically acceptable, but from a tax regulations, it might affect your business in a negative way that might lead to double taxation. So you have to understand what can cause double taxation, how you can relieve double taxation, how interactively you can utilize the double tax agreement for the sake of double taxation as well. And whether or not double taxation or double non-taxation can cause problems. So those are, I can call them, those are the core fundamental subjects. Some may agree, some may disagree, but those are the fundamentals that you can build everything else on. So far, we have went through the core fundamental subjects. We have tested some aspects. What we will do next is we will go through one exam, December 22, international tax exam, we will have a high-level understanding and the key takeaways that has been cascaded from the recommended answers. So I'm now trying to share the PDF copy of the exam that you already know. It should be on your screen by now. So here you have the very much familiar, I'm sure that most of you have went through it. You should have done your practice already, and we'll discuss the practice. If you have not done it, I'll give you like last minute advice. The thing is, as I mentioned, you should give equal time management to each question because each question is 25 marks. Avoid the 15 minutes here. Assume it's only 3 hours and act accordingly. You have to manage your time by your own self. So December 22 question. Question 1 was, it's here. Question 1 was trying to interpret a concept that has been adopted recently for the sake of, can say, ease of administration and trying to help countries accelerate the transformation. So the question was trying to quote a statement from Mr. Angel Correa, who was the OECD Secretary General at that time. So he was trying to mention that in addition to saving jurisdictions from the burden of bilateral renegotiating these treaties, these tax treaties, he's discussing the bilateral tax treaties. That's why we have a multilateral instrument results in more certainty and predictability. So he's giving a statement. He's not giving a question to you, but the question will ask you to critically evaluate the case. So here in essence, what we're trying to say is the question now, if I went through it, I understood that it's trying to refer to the multilateral instrument or multilateral convention, and it's trying to shed the light on bilateral tax treaties as well. The thing is, here it's asking you to critically evaluate the statement. What you need to understand is there are many aspects here you can cover, but the main question should be answered on two specific aspects here. First, you should have to interpret the MLI concept. What is an MLI? How does it function? What's the benefit? Why is it here? Where is it coming from? So if I take the answer from the end, it's one of the actions in BEPS project, action 15. That was the multilateral instrument or multilateral convention that will help the countries to amend the bilateral tax treaties and transform the tax treaty network globally. So it will ease some of the burden on the bilateral negotiations, and it will try to accelerate the need for transformation. You have noticed that during the last 5 years, it has been very fast in terms of reforms, MLIs, BEPS reports. Aside from BEPS Action 1, it has been very fast in the recent 3-4 years specifically. There have been a lot of changes in your country on the international tax aspect, whether you're an international tax professional or you are working on a domestic level, it doesn't matter. You have been affected by the changes. So the MLI is trying to interpret the concept here. So those are the main pillars I'm trying to focus on. And this is what the recommended action, the recommended solutions focused on. They're trying to ask you to interpret what is an MLI and why do we need it? Of course, we need it because it will give us more certainty. It will accelerate the transformation. It will ease the administration of renegotiating bilateral tax treaties, and the list can keep on. So here you are. I have read the question 2-3 times at least, so that I can start build on my draft papers. You can have a draft papers with you, like blank papers. Keep like couple 3-4 blank papers with you. If you're an old school, you still love to take some notes. Those notes are the headers of your answers. That's how you should think, so that you can interpret. So make sure that you interpret the case, give them the pros and cons, function, how it works, and if you have any issues encountered, you need to point out, does it take more time than the bilateral or no? That can be one of the benefits. Does it affect other countries or other legislations on a domestic level, maybe, or no? End of day, bilateral tax treaty, or even a multilateral tax treaty, is a translation of domestic or a reconciliation of domestic rules and regulations in terms of tax on a cross-border level. So make sure that you have this understanding. And are you aware of any updates that have been recently published? If you're aware, they love to see your recent updates. They will give you marks over here, marks over there, here as well, and the list keeps going. And you need every mark. Every single mark does count, to be honest. Trust me when I say that, because I've seen students who have failed just because of one mark. Of course, you would be very much careful about where should I get the information from. By now, you should know where you can get the information from. You have many resources such as the Case One Grad book. Maybe you have the OECD Model Tax Convention commentaries, the condensed version. You have many allowable resources that you can take into the exam. And if you're already a tax professional, you definitely have went through the MLI in detail. So you know the sections, you know how it's interacting and so on. The good thing is, do not just try to answer the very simple question, which is the MLI. That's it. No. Vienna Convention, for example, which is the law of treaties, have mentioned that in Article 30, for example, in Vienna Convention, we have 4 or 5 articles that is very critical to you. And one of them is Article 30. It's mentioning that later treaty can override or supersede in power or authorization level a former treaty, such as the bilateral treaty followed by an MLI or multilateral treaty as well. You can mention this point as well. So you have to write about any relevant information. Please, in this sort of question, do not come here to define to them what is residency or what is permanent establishment. No, try to define what is the purpose of a treaty. Try to define what is an MLI, benefits, pros and cons, the need for more collaborations, more cooperation between different jurisdictions. This is how you should see it. This is how you should interpret it. If you look at the recommended answers, this is how they are trying to give you. So your statement in any question should start by an introduction level, followed by a body interpretation of the core ideas, and you should have 3 to 4 core ideas that you have to speak about, and then you should have a closing statement. Closing statement should be a conclusion. By the way, the reviewers does want to hear your voice, does want you to say something about your view. If you have a view about an implication or application of some sort of question, definitely you can share. This is how you see it. If you still that this is still in progress, needs more enhancement, still you can mention. That's your view. End of the day, your tax advisor says you're trying to attempt this paper. It does seem that you have quite good understanding and expertise in the area of international taxation, and that's how you should interpret. So for example, that was the first question. Second question was, it's the same from the PDF, but I'll try to copy and make it onto the slides. I will share the slides by the end of the workshop today. If it was beneficial, I hope so. Here the question was very identical question, I would say, to those who have seen the last 6-7 years of questions, past papers. So here there is MRA authority. It is considering whether and how to amend its system of relief from juridical double taxation. And here you are trying, the question is asking you to outline the various options systems that is available, and if there is any policy considerations involved in the adoption itself. So here it's trying to ask you about that the case for relief from double taxation is there. So again, we're back in square one, which is double taxation is one of the subjects we'll discuss in this question. So you have to tell them what can happen to lead a taxpayer or a business or a multinational company to suffer from the double taxation. And you have to shed the light on the different options of double taxation that we just mentioned earlier. And again, you have to interpret the concept of how the authority will be positioned to apply it. This definitely you have to consider the available information under OECD Article 23. So Article 23 will give you the systems that is available as per the OECD guideline, the Model Tax Convention of the OECD. And here they have not mentioned whether you should for the US, look for the US or OECD or UN, but you can make a direct reference by telling them that the OECD have collaborated with many jurisdictions to develop a guideline that can be helpful for double tax treaties and the systems that can be adopted. So you have to think about why do we need relief system? How the taxpayer would be suffering if we don't have systematical, clear double taxation avoidance systems or relief systems from double taxation. You have to give the view, because if you guys recall, your tax professionals, definitely you have read the preamble of the OECD Model Tax Convention. What does it say? It does say that you are trying to commit to collaboration on economical aspects that include taxation, and it does not include non-taxation. I'm trying to be summarized. You can read the preamble at your own pace. But the thing is, even the very first paper on the OECD Model Tax Convention, it's trying to shed the light on the need to have a double taxation agreement. You have to interpret what are the available methods for relief system with detail, because here it's asking you about a specific topic. Please do not go to other subjects and try to elaborate. Here, try to read the question one more time, considering whether and how to amend system of relief from juridical double taxation. You already know that juridical double taxation are linked to Article 23 of the OECD Model Tax Convention. So you have to interpret from that perspective whether or not MRA has an active treaty network, or they are wishing to expand their treaty network. It's a factor that they have to consider the tax relief system they have. So also you have to shed the light on the neutrality. If you guys recall, there have been a chapter about neutrality, national neutrality, income neutrality, or capital. They love to say capital. That was an economical aspect of neutrality. You have to consider to shed the light on the aspect as well. And you have to give maybe one example, one statement about the tax system that might be in your expertise or area of specialization already. Also, you have to consider whether or not it's easy or complicated to change the methodology. For example, if you are trying to change the methodology from an exemption to a credit system or vice versa, is it easy? Which system is better for the government, for the country, and so on? You have to consider all these factors. So you are trying to give them the pros and cons. You're trying to give them the policy considerations, the practical aspect that you might be been part of. You might did some sort of projects in the past. You have went through the commentaries and you can give some sort of elaboration. This is how you should interpret this question. Again, there have been an introduction and body, interpretation, and then a closing statement. This is very critical for you all. The third question was very challenging. Of course, you don't have to answer 7 questions during the exam. You have to answer only 4, either 3 and 1, 3 part A, 1 part B, or 2 and 2, part A and B. It depends on your strategy, depends on your exam. You can decide. So third question in December 22. Question was a very valid question regarding BIPS Action 1, which is digital economy. BIPS Action 1 was very identical into Pillar 1 and 2, but here the question was asking you about only Pillar 1. One point you have to be careful about. Do you see this break of the marks? The breakdown of the marks have not been in the question 2, not in question 1, as you can see, 25 marks and then 25 marks, but on the third question, 15 and then 10 marks. You have to pay attention to these details. Do not try to attempt these questions if you're trying to choose question number 3, as if those two, 3.1, 3.2 is equivalent to 25. No, trying to make it 3.1 is 15 marks and answer it. 3.2 is 10 marks and answer it. Again, time management technique. You have to consider giving more weight and time to 3.1. Consider to give less time to 3.2. So assuming you have 40 minutes, you have to divide it into the proper ratio. You have to allocate your time in the right way. So the question was actually very, very similar to BIPS Action 1. It's asking you about a specific subject under BIPS Action 1, and you have to elaborate. Here, the question Pillar 1 and amount A in a specific. So they are trying to ask you, you are required to prepare a report that outlines Pillar 1 and amount A in a specific. And this is 3.2. By 3.1, you should start to draft your building blocks, where you will build your strategy, the concept, and the main subjects and the headers or headlines that you will have to interpret on. So Pillar 1, 15 marks. I should have to think about what is BIPS Action 1. So we need to consider what is BIPS Action 1. You have to interpret. You have to give a brief explanation about it. And please, you can mention that there is a 2-pillar solution and there is something called Pillar 2, but do not attempt to be elaborative on Pillar 2. They are asking you precisely on Pillar 1. You can just give one statement about Pillar 2 because you want to continue your subject. Sometimes in order to come to the core idea, you have to start explaining the concept itself. So this is very important part that you might give some sort of understanding about 2-pillar existence and Pillar 2, but do not try to be very much elaborative on that subject, on that point. Try to be elaborative on the question exactly. Pillar 1, amount A. So here we're trying to build up the case, the answer, and you have to come to mention that we have bill 1 amount A and amount B as well. And you have to consider who are in scope for bill 1 amount A. You have to be very precise. Give every piece of information you know about it. Do not try to be I'll be just brief to the point. No, don't be brief to the point. You have to give everything that is related to the subject. And unlucky us, the version that you guys have, if you're attempting the exam with Kies van Rad book, it's April 2020, which even almost at the time of the existence of the two-pillar solution. But it does not have every piece of details. Still, you can build up on it, but you have to have your own summary. You have to have your own reading that can be utilized if you wish to take this question, because you might answer other questions than this. It depends on every single person. So we have to be very detailed. In the following slide, for example, I have went through some of the information that is available. So you have to mention that the amount A applicable to what companies and what is the threshold, what are the threshold, what are the rules and regulations that will abide by. Does GDP matters or no? GDP of those jurisdictions who will adopt or will be applicable on. And you have to be very, very elaborative on that subject. That was 3.1. 3.2 is asking you about some sort of arguments against exclusion of RFS or regulated financial services under amount A. So it's trying to shed the light on one report that has been published during the very first Q1 or Q2 of 2022 regarding the excluded regulated financial services, RFS for short. RFS and other subjects or other, let's say, industries have been excluded from the implementation. So the sake of the exclusion was built on an argument. Here, the report is trying to say that there are arguments against the exclusion itself. So let's think about the exclusion in high level. The exclusion was trying to think about that this sector, this financial services sector, is well regulated, is oversighted by competent authorities, that is reporting a lot of disclosures and in a way that is providing more complicated and sophisticated obligations from a tax point of view and financial reporting point of view as well. Likewise, other obligations, FATCA, CRS, other type of ESR can be, and so on. Those are obligations and disclosures that this sector might have to fulfill to stay alive, to stay in business. So those are, under this argument, the brief argument, have been excluded. So there are viewers who are against this exclusion. So it's trying to shed the light. Definitely in such a question, you should not start from what are the arguments. You might not be up to date with the arguments, but you have to be up to date. You have to go through at least a summary of that report and try to see what are the kind of arguments that are opposite to or against to the exclusion. But you have to explain what is the exclusion base to understand why is it being excluded. So you have to give 10 marks out of the total to this exact 3.2. In your exam answer, do not try to split the page. Likewise, you split the page between question 2 and 3. I know that you, for a fact, you guys have attempted to try exam 4 software already. So you should, by default, understand that the exam paper on the exam 4 software You can split the white paper by just adding a splitter. So do not try to split here your answer. Just try to mention that answer to question number 3, 3.1, and then while you start to answer for 3.2, you can mention that this is for 3.2. If you feel that you need to copy part of the 3.1 into 3.2, feel free to copy. Maybe it will facilitate your argument, your explanation, your comprehension, and your viewpoint. End of day, you need to deliver an idea. You need to deliver a subject. So you might utilize some of the former written clauses or statement or paragraphs of yours in other questions or on this question for the sake to answer, for example, 3.2. So you have to give them something so that you can earn the maximum of the 25 marks. I've not seen people who have attempted 100 marks yet. I hope there would be. I've seen 90, 92, 93, but I've not seen those who have attempted full mark, and I don't think it will exist. So this is question number 3. It's trying to give us the concepts of BEPS Action 1 with an in-depth view on amount A and Pillar 1 in specific. Question 4, and then we'll take a short break and then come back for the rest of today's workshop. We still have questions. I've seen questions on the chat box. Please just wait for the Q&A part. We'll have to discuss that one. So the question here, the last question before the break, is outline the operation of a specific article of the OECD Model Tax Convention 2017 in relation to, and it started to give you an interpretation. Again, do you see this? What happened? 4.1, 4.2. Again, they are splitting the marks, but this time it's almost 50-50. It's not 15-10. It's now becoming 13-12. I have not seen cases where they will say 12.5 and 12.5. No, but this is what they want to give you. This is 50-50 split. So what is happening here is Article 13. Of course, you know Article 13. It's about the capital gains that you have to consider the implications. The very first moment, even if you know by heart what is Article 13 and you memorize it to the end, please go to the OECD Model Tax Convention, Article 13. Have a quick look, just refresh your memory. Because if this was your second question, I mean out of the 4, or third question, or last even, you just left it to the last, your memory will be very much tired, exhausted, because you have been answering a lot of questions. So you need to take a moment, look at the article, so that you can maintain your calmness, because you're now reading. You are shifting your mind from a writer to a reader. It will help you to stay onwards. So here, go on and start to read the question. After you attempted to open up the page, keep it in front of you, go through it. It will not take more than half a minute, or maybe a minute maximum. You just need to go through it. If you have Article 13 in your mind, or you memorize it, or if you opened up the page of the Article 13, you will find it discussing the capital gains and the interaction between the source jurisdiction, the residency jurisdiction, and the different types of income, and in case of other clauses that have not been mentioned in the first 4 paragraphs, it have to be accepted, or maybe who will give the relief and so on. So there is interpretation under each clause of Article 13. So the question is, the domestic tax law of a contracting state applying a double tax agreement. So they are trying to ask you to outline the operation, the application of Article 13 to the domestic tax law of a contracting state. They have not mentioned which contracting state. That's why they are letting you interpret on both sides, source and residency, or residence state, the home country, applying the double tax treaty. So now you have to start elaborating on this. This is how you should do it. This is how you should have started interpreting and look at the approach. End of the day, I've mentioned that the double tax agreement is a reconciliation between two different jurisdictions from a domestic tax law perspective. I will not accept some sort of tax regulation that is not implemented in my domestic country or my domestic tax law. This does not make any sense because under Article 2 of the OECD Model Tax Convention or any DTA between countries, they will mention specifically what kind of tax regulations they are accepting to be into the double tax agreement. They will mention this is corporate income tax law number XYZ. This is income tax law or income tax act XYZ or ABC. Doesn't matter. They have to be very precise. They cannot be fake. They cannot be we're applying this to every piece of legislation or tax regulation in the country. No, it doesn't work like this. It has to be very precise. That's why you have Article 2 of the Model Tax Convention. That's why here they are asking you to look for the domestic tax implications. Your country might don't have capital gains, so you might see a different treatment. This view will be the last view to give. But first, you have to interpret the case. You have to point out to some of the references of the OECD Model Tax Convention, Article 13. If you can reference and refer to some of the commentaries, that will be, again, very much welcomed, and you will get more marks. So 4.1 is trying to interpret the case from a high-level perspective. Unlike 4.2, it's trying to ask you to interpret the interaction between the distributive rules and Article 13 itself. So it's trying to say, how can you think and interpret about Article 13 in relation to other articles as well, such as Article 7, 8, 6, and other rules that have been mentioned in a double taxation avoidance treaty. That's how it works. So 4.1, 4.2 is trying to ask you about a specific subject, which is good. It's not a vague subject, but again, in 4.2, they expanded the horizon. So please expect that your subject will be stretched to see any interactions with other articles or even BEPS project action plans. This is how it works. In an exam of the principles of international taxation, you must keep in mind any interactions, any correlations between any of the model tax articles, model tax convention articles, BEPS projects, or even inside the model tax convention itself, how you can give correlations between articles. For example, Article 7 and 9, there is a correlation, passive income from 10 through 13, there is correlation, and how you can correlate the employment income with the residency, and much more. There is a lot of correlations that you have experienced, that you have understood during your study program. So the thing is, here you have to interpret in that way. You have to mention that the taxes covered are there. And then by the last, you should have give some sort of view. You are not just a reader who have read something in the past or read a paper, someone have written it as an author, and you're just trying to memorize and just get, you have your own view. You might build your own view based on many circumstances coming from your country, from your professionalism, from your life in different countries and so on. So you can give a view, but do not try to be very much explanative and stretch your view to the moment that it might take the core answers of your question. So try to keep heads up for the question. As you see, I've come back to the question many times while I'm doing the interpretation to make sure I'm still here. I've not deviated from the core concept, because if I deviated, you're wasting your time. If you're wasting your time, your exam strategy number one is not there, and you will lose marks and time. So I think by now we should have take a quick 7 minutes break, and then we will be back after this 7 minutes break for a stretch, and then we'll continue from there, and we will close today by the Q&A. So I see you in 7 minutes. So I think we had a small break where you could have take some water, grab some water, some tea, coffee, stretch your legs. I hope that everyone is back, and now we can move on to the fifth question of December 22 past paper. So, and the fifth question, it was asking you are required to consider how countries may introduce controlled foreign company rules. Controlled foreign company rules, it is CFC rules, and the extent to which such rules may be compatible or otherwise with the OECD Model Tax Convention 2017. So here the question is asking you about one narrative, two different aspects. The narrative here is CFC rules, controlled foreign company rules. And it's asking about how countries may introduce it and to what extent you might feel it's compatible with the OECD Model Tax Convention, or there is a compatibility or correlation levels. The question here is very, very complex, I would say. The question is, you can definitely rely on BEPS project for these questions. Yeah, BEPS Action 3, if I'm not mistaken. It's referring to those rules of the CFC rules. And there have been some interpretations under Article 1 in the commentary section about the CFC rules. Not only that, you should have read about CFC rules, how it is applicable in some of the jurisdictions as well, because during your study program, you should have understood some of the key concepts of how this is implemented globally. Some countries, such as Japan, might have such rules. So in order to understand and digest, you have here to shed the light on a specific subject. You have to shed the light on BEPS Action Plan number 3, and you have to shed the light on if there is a correlation, compatibility, and how do you see these rules are interacting with each other. So the thing here, you have to focus on what is the concept of CFC. You have to give definition, you have to understand and give an understanding about how it functions in order to move on and explain the key concepts of this rule. You have to understand that without explaining that these rules might be an extension or stretching of the rules and regulations. I'm just trying to pause for a second. My voice is audible. You can hear me clearly before I move on. I'm just checking. My voice is audible. Everything is in the right way. Right? Yeah, all right. Okay, so you have to shed the light on the stretching rules of the CFC applications and how this might give rise to right to tax of another jurisdiction over a CFC country. It can happen, or a CFC entity. It can happen. So we have to explain the stretching rules. I'm using terminologies that might not be used in the exam, but it's for the explanation purposes, because these CFC rules, the implementation, might affect cross-border trade, might affect cross-border transactions, might affect entities established in a foreign country. If we are speaking from a home country and a source jurisdiction, so there is a foreign country and there is a local country rules. So you have to consider as well to explain to them that there is some sort of clarification has been given on the CFC rules in terms of the commentary on Article number 1. The first two articles of the OECD Model Tax Convention and the Model Tax Convention overall, not just the OECD, even the UN version, is identically trying to shed the light on the scope of the persons, scope of the taxes, so that you can put the DTA in the right magnitude of application. Because if you don't have right scope, proper scope, you will not have a proper relief. You will not have a proper economical cooperation. And then you have to shed the light on the CFC rules. It have been mentioned there. It's been used as a way to counterattack some sort of base erosion profit shifting techniques. That's why it was strengthening foreign country rules or controlled foreign country rules as part of the cohesive plan or cohesive principle. We have three principles under the PEPSI project. The first one was the cohesiveness. It's trying to put the way for the income to be allocated properly and to be taxed properly without having any base erosion profit shifting techniques or aggressive tax planning strategies. So they are trying to strengthen the CFC rules. Also, I'm trying here to shed the light on that there is some sort of application that recently have been popped up as a top-up tax, but it is different in mechanism. But I'm just trying to point it out here. The thing is, CFC rules might work in a way or function in a way. It will subject the subco in a residency country or a foreign country to taxation for the home country. It can happen in that way, function in that way. Likewise, recently, we have seen some of the functionalities of PEPS Action 1 happening or functioning in the same way, similar to the approach, but with some sort of top-up tax on the global rules or the 15%. You can mention some of the best practices that you have seen in one country or another, but you have to give quite explanation on the subject if you choose them to answer this question. So this is the first 5 questions, and definitely know that part B is different from part A in terms of the style and the format. For the questions in part B, 2 questions case study. I'll tell you a secret, I never read the paragraphs at the first minute or so. I go directly to the questions and try to evaluate the marks. So I have the first question under 6.1, it's 20 marks. And this 6.2, it's 5 marks. So it does make sense. I'll give much more weight, much more time to understanding this question and interpreting this question than this one. I'm not saying that you should ignore. I'm saying that you should allocate more time to 6.1. So here I started from bottom up. Prepare a memo outlining the residence status of A for the purpose of the country A and country B DTA. It does seem that I got the question in my head, at least drafted some sort of bulletins that I can understand and I can interpret. So here there is a double taxation treaty or double taxation avoidance treaty between 2 countries, and they are trying to give a view in my answer. So now I will try to analyze the case in terms of the understanding. But before even I try to attempt to analyze the case, I need to analyze that I have to explain some sort of main concepts, such as the residency, and you have to understand the concept of the double taxation avoidance treaty or the DTA in short. So now back to the question, you have to start analyzing the question to see what happened. So ACO is a multinational entity. By the first 4 words, I could understand now that prepare a memo outlining the residency status of ACO. It's a multinational entity that is operating in different jurisdictions, and it has might be conflicting of the residency, or they have extensions in other countries that might, for the purpose of the DTA, affect the residency status. So I got the question in my head drafted already. So now I can think about getting some givens that I will utilize in my answer. And this is how the question would work. Even 6.2 would work in the same way, same approach. I've not changed it, and even question is number 7, I'll do the same. So bottom up and try to get the givens. You have your draft paper, the blank papers with you, start to take some notes. If you're good with the keyboard, you can start writing in the moment. It doesn't make different. Just take your notes and start elaborating. So here they are giving you the case and asking you to evaluate. All right, you will evaluate. So they are asking about the residency status. Definitely you'll evaluate Article 4 to think about the connecting factors, to think about the residency, and start to see where this company, this multinational entity, will be taxed, or there might be double taxation, and who will give relief under Article 23 of the OECD if they are adopting OECD approach. And I can see very clearly that they mentioned DTA between A and B is covered tax agreement that is also mirrors OECD Model Tax Convention 2017, Article 4. So thank you very much for confirming my idea. This is how you should interpret the case. Whether or not they will give you information, some of the information will be irrelevant. They're just trying to like suck up your time. And if you get distracted, خلاص means like you're done. This means that you're losing time, you're losing marks, you're deviated from the main concept. So pay attention to the main details, pay attention to the question, come back and read the question one more time, which is outlining the residency status of ACO for the purposes of the country AB DTA. So you have to consider these elements, that's it, in this type of questions. 6.2 might be different. So 6.2 is here asking about, consider how the situation might change if, and they're giving you a case, where country A or country B to introduce rules into their domestic tax law to provide an exemption from taxation for the foreign source income of certain company or certain foreign companies. This is some sort of preferential, I'm not saying regime, but they are trying to impose a preferential rate, preferential treatment for a specific foreign source income of certain foreign companies. I can see very frank that you have given or considering in this situation to give certain foreign companies specific exemptions to their foreign source of income. This is some sort of discussion you have to think about. So this might trigger in your head a lot of information. Please, this is just 5 marks. Do not try to give it more time than the 20. Try to give and allocate only the proper marks so that you can take the most out of the marks here in this 25 marks question. Here I might think about many options. I might think about discrimination. I might think about BEPS project, encountering harmful tax practices. I might think about the application of Article 23. There are a lot of discussions, but if I will discuss these 3 I just mentioned, it will take me like 3 hours to discuss. So I will only allocate the proportionate time for this question of 5 marks. So here, definitely you have to interpret the residency coup and to understand the tiebreaker, the connecting factors, and give rise to if there is any dispute, how things can be challenged and how you can work on the resolution of the dispute through the mutual agreement procedure, and how PIPS has facilitated the utilization of dispute resolution mechanism and make it more effective. That's what the PIPS Section 15 is about. PIPS Section 14 is about. It's trying to reduce the burden, facilitate, accelerate the dispute resolutions through MAP, which is 25 on the OECD Model Tax Convention, or other rules that might be implemented. And this is how it should be interpreted. And I have not wasted a lot of time trying to understand the case here. I'm trying to understand the residency. You will have to read number 1, 2, and some of the paragraphs here, and that's it. You will formulate an opinion immediately right after, but do not try to get yourself into unneeded information, because it's a waste of time. So the next question and the last on this exam practice is trying to analyze. Again, I'll do the exact same. I'll start from the bottom up. So I have 10, 5, 10. This question is tricky. It might cause me issues in allocating time. So I have to be fast, because it's not just 2 questions or 10, 25. Like the question number 6, it was 20 marks, 5 marks, and that's it. No, here's 10 marks, 5 marks, 10 marks, that's equal to 25. Again, it's up to you whether you will take 2 questions mandatory from part B so that you can take only 2 from part A, or you will only take 1 out of that question number 6 and 7 and the exam. It's up to you. You'll have to be very careful, and I'll give you like a quick trick how you can do that by the end. So here the question is trying to tell you outline general level changes made to the definition. All right, changes made to the definition of PE. Okay, this is very, very complex question. It's not easy, but I'm sure that you have studied it plenty of times so that you can interpret what's behind the scenes under Article 5 of the Model Tax Convention. So definitely there have been changes between 2014 Model Tax Convention and 2017 Model Tax Convention, under which Article 5 was very much exposed, we can say. And there have been changes, and these changes were driven from PIPS report or PIPS action plan. You can review PIPS action plan 7. It's too much and so much correlated to the changes that has been implemented in Article 5 as a change, matter of fact. So here it's asking you to outline the changes. You have to be very, very informative about what are the changes. You have 4 main changes: either the commissioner splitting of the contracts, the revisit of the BE definition, the exclusions, and you have to consider all these factors in your question, because it's asking on a general level. Go back to question number 2. So the question is, do you think that question 7.1 has any correlation with the paragraph above? No, 0 correlation, but it's trying to ask you about the specific condition. Definitely, before you try to answer 7.1, please, it's just 4 or 5 paragraphs. Read it quick, just in case if there is anything that is relevant here. So as government is concerned that double taxation agreement network may not sufficiently protect its source state taxing rights. So they are trying to highlight source state taxing rights, the right to tax, in relation to the business profits of overseas entities. And then it will goes on that various double taxation agreements in S government network, it include the Article 5 or mirrors Article 5 as of 2014 model. So S government has neither signed nor ratified MLC or MLI, you name it, in relation to the EPSI project. This means it has not adopted the recent changes. So this is how you should think and interpret. Interpretation, we discussed 7.1. 7.2, it summarizes how as government source tax rights or source taxing rights may change if its double taxation agreement network were to include provisions that mirror. They are trying to ask you, okay, based on the understanding on the or the information you got to answer from 7.1, how do you think it is affecting or it can affect 7.2? This is how it works. So 7.2 is asking you about how it will impact the source state taxing rights on this specific question. So you should start to formalize or formulate an opinion that you shed the light on the benefits that will give rise to the source state taxing rights to not be that much concerned that it does not have sufficiently protection over the source state income. So 7.3 is trying to give you a specific point of 7.1, which is considers Article 5 of 2017 as it relates to commissioner arrangement. They need you in precise to discuss the commissioner arrangement and how it works and how the independent agent works and how these tax planning strategies might be implemented. If you have seen cases in real life, you can shed the light on without giving any names. If there is a case law relevant to all the past 7 questions and you are aware of, you can give an explanation about, you can give reference, because definitely they will give you marks on that. So this is the last 25 marks you will get once you formalize an opinion. Again, try to be very much style, answering 7.1, 7.2, 7.3. This will give you the marks that you deserve for each question. So I think by now, I'll give you just quick high-level examiner reviews before we go to the Q&A of today's session. The examiner reviews will consider that your view is view as an advisor. That's why you have to consider that fact. You should make good analytical and writing skill, because you have developed your knowledge and your practical understanding of the case in a way that will allow you to make good interpretation of the case. It does not matter whether or not your native language is English, but definitely the exam is in English. So you have to consider that writing in English in a clear way is very important. Have a view. You can have a view. You can have your own view based on some circumstances, some cases, some business-related concerns you have faced in your career. But do not be so much elaborative, because you might go outside of the point and waste your time. Maintain order. They love to see that you are maintaining the order. I'm not trying to answer the question and give answers that is 100% right, correct, to the point. However, it's not in the logical order. I do not understand if you're trying to build up an answer that is not typically in the right order. You have to think in the right order, thus you have to write in the right order. For example, 2014 Model Tax Convention was updated in 2017, and there have been a lot of articles impacted by the change. So you have to give the narrative of 2014 and then 2017 changes. And in between 2014 through 2017, the core change or the driver of the change was BIP's project, which was summarized in the summary report that have been developed in 2015 and 2016, and different split of the reports. So 2017 is a matter of fact and impact of the changes that have been implemented under BEPS, and the countries have ratified and accepted the BEPS project in 2015 and 2016. That's why you have an updated version in 2017. So I'm trying to maintain the order. I'm trying to maintain that I'm explaining in a way that is logically. And then I might come to talk about PE, for example, if that's the case. There is 2018 report. Maybe if there was another report, I will mention. So I'm trying to maintain the order. So the reader or the reviewer can be still with you because you want to get the marks. So try to let them tell the story. Do not just write some technicalities. Final tips and takeaways. Be present, be yourself, and do not attempt to copy and paste any of the permitted text because the system will block you and you might get disqualified. Stay focused, keep away from distraction. Please do careful reading. It's very important. Write with the end in mind. You have to write the building blocks on a piece of paper or on your exam answer blank sheet. If you're good with the keyboard, do it and interpret from the end of the mind, but keep in mind that you have to maintain the order. Reread the question, trying to give you the question one more time, trying to emphasize on the importance of reading the question and rereading the question even during your interpretation. This is very critical. It will help you to stay calm and stay in line. I've been experiencing this myself. One of my answers was I was just typing and you're out of time, you don't have much time and you're typing so fast and you're trying to get the question answered. I experienced it that I wrote in the wrong direction to the extent that I had to erase and remove what I have invested time on because I have missed the question and I have deviated from the original idea. This is how you should do it. I'm just trying to give you something that I have personally experienced and definitely other students as well. So I think this is the Q&A session or the last. By now we will have just a quick interactive Q&A about the styles, the marks, and so on. So I'll start from the questions on the screen. And if you have any questions, either it will be on the chat box or it will be on the screen, but we'll try to cover as much as we can for the time. I know that we have exceeded the time that we planned, but I know that you have exams tomorrow, so I'm trying to facilitate as well. So here the question is, my problem is to write down, that's the first question. Not sure why I'm losing the cursor, but let me just go one more time here. So the thing is, my problem, I'll answer the first question. If you want to type your question, please, if it's better to keep it in one place, everyone will be able to see it. My problem is to write down my thought in a paper. So any recommendation that would be highly appreciated. You have two options, or actually three options. You have the blank paper on your exam4 software. You have the piece of paper that you can utilize, and you have your memory. If your memory is good, try to utilize it for the building blocks. Try to build a header for that. That's the thought. Sometimes I do, I'll give you how I do it on the blank software exam4. In software code, if you want to write a comment, you will have to make double slash in a piece of paper. So this means a comment. So I use the same strategy. I do double slash. This means that I'm gonna think about this later. I'm not gonna use it. I'm gonna rephrase it. I will re-emphasize, whatever. So double slash helps me when I read the white paper or I see the white paper at that question. Okay, this is my thoughts, starting from this double slash and ending by a double slash or a quote or whatever you prefer, but I'm just trying to give you what I'm experiencing. So the second question is, for the paper, does it show how many marks are available? Definitely. What I have seen, what you have seen, what I have shown you on the presentation today is typically how the exam past paper question looks like. This is how it looks like. This is how you should see it. This is how each question will be very much clear and to the point, giving you how many marks for each question and sub-question, like the one that we saw on 7.1, 7.2, 7.3 for today's session. Let's now look at the chat box, because I've seen that some of the questions have been texted on the chat box. So I'm not using one of the questions. If I may just give me a moment, I'm just plugging in. I will plug in my battery charger. So hold on. All right. So the first question from Muhammad Farhan, he's saying, as I am not using the permitted text to use an exam, will there any impact if I use only article numbers such as Article 4 and title residence of the OECD Model Tax Convention without referring to sub-articles? See, I don't know why you're not using permitted text, but if you have the OECD Model Tax Convention PDF, you can just print it, get a confirmation, and you have it in your exam. If there is a reference that you can utilize, I don't see why you don't utilize it, to be honest. But if you just write whatever the header, I don't mind. But to be honest, you have to be very much precise. It will be very much helpful, and you will get more marks. So then the next question, Amir Yunus, he's saying, what if we write that there is an article dealing with dots without mentioning the article? In fact, this is not recommended. This approach is vague. We are not here talking about vagueness. We're talking about specific articles that you must stick to and you must refer to. I think you're referring to Muhammad Farhan question. All right, and then Muhammad Farhan one more time. He said, I have seen that some candidates use cases referenced in the exam to support. 100%, right? Your question is, I have queries that one, what if we don't refer to any case at all? Second, can we write without mentioning company name? Like I dealt with the case where, see, the thing is, you will get more marks definitely if you refer to case studies. I've referred to case studies in my exam, and you should do likewise. In Toolbook, there is a case law summary. You might go through it. You might don't recall or memorize every point that is mentioned in the case law, but it's preferable and recommended to utilize it. Definitely, candidates who have done that, they will definitely get more marks. Can we write without mentioning the company name? Yes, that's your view. That's what I mentioned earlier. Again, Muhammad Farhan is saying, but because it might be everyone else might thinking about the same, I think we have 4 more questions. That is the last. In Employment Article 15, will tiebreaker will be applicable over it in case of dual residency if the residency is not determined by 183 days PE bearing remuneration and contract executed by source. See, employment income. I saw that you're mentioning employment income, and then there's a PE case, and I'm not actually quite sure what is the case. But if you can message me, and I'll type my my email as well. I think every one of you already have my email. But if you have a precise case, you can message it to my personal email as well. I typed it to the chat box so that I can understand the case, and I can reply back to you. What do you mean the system will block you out? Actually, I remember that I said that, but I do not. Okay. If you copy and paste text as is, maybe from other sources than the permitted text, the system will detect that you have copied other scripts that is not permitted, and it might end up that the system detection will give alerts to the examiners, and then they will come back after your exam and mention that you have similarities with other candidates or other materials that have been not referenced or not accepted in the exam, and then you will lose your chance, even if you have did very well, you might lose your chance to pass the paper. So it will, I mean, the system will block you out. I mean, the UK CIOT ADIT system. Please, is this being recorded and where I can watch the recording? Yes, this is being recorded. Once we close today, it will be available for sharing. And the same way that we have shared about the event, we will be sharing the recording link for everyone to watch it. So back to the questions on the screen. I think we have 2 more or 3 more questions. We have answered the first one already. So now going to the second question, which is the candidates' scripts from past papers are considered sufficient answers. If you tell me about sufficient answers, I respect and I agree with every candidate's script, especially if those were chosen to be candidate scripts. This means that they have accomplished very good marks and very good technique. But it does not mean that you don't have your own view and you have other answers in your mind that you might add. It can be sufficient, definitely, but you have to consider if there is other areas to cover, you have to cover it as well. This question was from Tala, and the before question was from Nasir about the available marks. On the third one here, over here, I'm just trying to see why my cursor is not letting me to see it, but anyway, we'll try to sort it out. So here we can do one thing. Okay, this is done. Okay. I need some technical assistance here. All right. I don't know why the mouse is not appearing, maybe because of the integration between this slide and the presentation. So the third question is, could you please clarify how to get in touch for further details on the TP paper course in case of passing the current paper? Inshallah, you'll pass the current paper. Not sure about your name, but you can write to my email and we can definitely discuss this aspect with our team. And you have also the main technical or business development team, info@abdurrahmanali.com. All right, so the next question is Farhan. All right, Farhan, I like your questions. You have asked a lot of questions, which is good for the benefit of the others. We can only use permitted text in exam, but not any other text. And the permitted text are paid versions. The OECD Model Tax Convention is not, actually it's a paid version, but it is now available everywhere, even on our WhatsApp group. Remember that, if I'm not mistaken, sorry if he's here, our colleague Claire, if I'm not mistaken, he shared it already. So it is available. You can download it. It's free of charge. But if you want to buy it, it's paid version, to be honest. So you have, so the same question again. I think we're done today for the questions. If you want to unmute yourself to one more comment or something, feel free. I think this is a good luck for everyone who's attempting tomorrow. Stay calm and please just breathe. It's one exam and be ready in mind that you should do your best during the 3 hours. I call it 3 hours, it's 3.15, but during the 3 hours, and best of luck in your tomorrow's exam. Unless there is no more questions, I think I have covered all. I wish you all the best, and we will be in touch for those who might be having the trans pricing exam. We're planning to have something tomorrow. I hope it will be beneficial, and I hope today as well was beneficial. And yeah, good luck, everyone. Good to speak to you, and stay in touch. Take care.